Hello and welcome to this demo of the Just Build Unity package. We're going to start by creating a new project, although the same steps can be followed if you want to import this package into your already existing project. We're going to create a URP project here. If you're using HDRP or the built-in render pipeline, please download the different version of the package available on the package website. Any of the package versions can be used with any render pipeline. You just have to change the shaders of the materials that are present to match the render pipeline that you're using. After we create a new project or open an already existing project and we import the Just Build package, the first thing that we might see is that we're missing some packages that we need to import, unless they're already present in your project. The first one is Cinemachine, so we'll go to the package manager and find it over there. Once that is done, we also want to make sure that we have the input system installed and imported, and we need to make sure that the TMP Pro is also included. One way to check this is to right-click in the hierarchy, go to the UI, and try to import one of the TMP components. In this case, since we don't have it imported, we're going to import it here. Once we have those packages imported, we are good to go. If you're getting any other errors, please check the manual that is provided. Next, we want to add the main prefab called Just Build Main Prefab into our hierarchy. If you don't have an event system in the hierarchy, please make sure that one is added. You have one in the prefabs folder that you can add to the hierarchy. Before we can start using Just Build, we have to create a couple of layers. We go to the top right corner and we're going to add some layers over here. We need a layer for a ground plane, which we're going to add. We need one layer for the buildings and objects such as walls and floor tiles, which we're going to call buildings. We need one layer for objects that need a holder, such as doors and windows. And we need one more layer for objects that can be freely rotated. I'm going to call these free objects. Once we have these layers created, we want to make sure that under the managers, in the building manager script, we have these 4 layers assigned appropriately. For instance, the ground floor should be the ground plane. Buildings layer mask should be set to buildings. The need holder one should be set to need holder. And the free objects layer mask should be set to free objects. While you're here, you can also set some of these values down here. We can set the Y value of our ground plane. In this case, since we don't have a ground plane, we're going to create one and scale it a bit. We're going to make sure that this is on the ground plane layer. Since the Y position of this plane is 0, we're going to set the current Y value in the building manager script to 0. Finally, you can set the number of floors, such as 6. You can also set the floor height. In this case, the value of 3 corresponds to 3 meters, which is also the default value. You can also change some of the current camera movement values down here. Finally, we'd have to make sure that the objects in the prefabs folder are also set to the appropriate layers. The 2 doors should be on the need holder layer. All of the floor tiles should be on the buildings layer. All of the holders should be on the buildings layer. Nothing needs to be set or changed in the managers folder. In the MISC folder, the deleter should be on the buildings layer. Free objects should all be under the free objects layer. Walls should be on the buildings layer. And finally, all of the windows should be on the need holder layer. Clicking on the player armature, there is a third-person controller script where we can set the layers on which the player can walk, such as buildings, ground plane, and the free objects. Now we're going to demonstrate all of the features that JustBuild has to offer. In this project, we have a custom terrain, and we need to figure out what the base height is. This plane over here looks like a good candidate, so we'll calculate its y value. We're going to create an empty game object, and we're going to enter the isometric view. And then, if we go all the way up to above here, we see that the y value is about 10. After we remove this game object, we can go into the Building Manager's game object and set the current y value to about 10. This is going to be the base level from which the objects are going to be placed. Let's go into play mode. Make sure that all of the layers are set correctly as described previously. First things first, we can move the camera around using WASD or the arrow keys. We can zoom in or out with the mouse wheel, and we can rotate the camera using Q and E. Please check the manual for the listing of all of the inputs used. If you're importing this package into your project, you might need to change some of these or re-implement them differently. All of the objects that can be placed will be located down here. Some of these objects, like the floor tiles or the walls, can be placed individually. We can also rotate them using the R key. If you want to be able to place multiple objects at once, you can use this button over here and go into the multiple mode. If there's already a floor tile placed and you try to place another one on top, the old one won't be overwritten. We first need to remove it before we can place a new one. One way to do this would be to click on individual tiles and remove them one by one using the right click. This also works with other objects, or you can go into the delete mode, switch to single mode, and then you can simply click on these tiles one by one to delete them. If you prefer multiple mode, click and drag to remove all objects placed under the deleter. Some objects, like the free rotation objects, can be rotated freely using the R key. Since all of these objects are placed under separate layers, when we click on an object, we will first detect the object on the free rotation layer. If there is nothing there, then we're going to move on to the buildings layer, and so on. In this case, we're going to select the floor tile, which is underneath. There are two different modes in which we can place objects, either single or multiple mode. This can be changed using the button over here. If we want to change the floors, we can use this button down here either to go up or to go down. We are currently on the ground floor, floor 0. After we create some walls, we can move on to the next floor and place some more for objects like this. Every time we place an object, it's going to be added to the layer of the floor, which is a list that contains all of the objects on the current floor. If we hit the H button, we can hide or show the current floor like this. If we move down to the ground floor, we can hide everything that's on the ground floor instead. Some objects, like doors and windows, will require a holder before they can be placed. When we place a door on this wall over here, the door needs to be replaced by an adequate holder that can hold this door. Something like this. Same thing will happen for windows. And if we want some of these objects to be interactable, for instance, when we enter the third player mode with the C button, we can add a trigger collider to it so that the player detects its presence. Going back to the build mode with the C key, we can also remove this door the same way as we would remove any other object by simply clicking on it. We can move it somewhere else if we want to, or we can just hit the right mouse click and the object will disappear. Objects cannot be placed on already existing objects. If we want to set or create another set of walls like these, the walls which are already present will prevent the other walls from being placed. In this case, we can see that the brick walls have not been placed on this wall over here. Additionally, if you want to, all of the objects that are not walls or floor tiles can be marked as needing collision checking, so when we try to place something like this where there is already an object present, that won't be possible. When we're happy with our level, we can save it. If we want to load that level, we need to set the name of the file. Note that every load will reset all of the lists that contain the objects already present, but the objects themselves will not be removed, which means that before you load anything, make sure that you remove all of the already existing objects. In this case, we have removed everything. We also need to make sure that we are on floor 0, as the load will happen from the current floor. And there we go. These will behave as any other placed objects. For instance, we can hide any floor we want now. Objects can also have their local scales changed. If we go over here to this wooden door, the default local scale is set to 111, which is the default value. If you don't want to change your 3D models for minor corrections after you have already imported them, you can set the local scale to something like 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, in this case for this plastic door. If we try to place a wooden door on a wall like this, that's going to work just fine. But because we have changed the local scale of this plastic door, it is going to be locally scaled after I place it to the wall here. This can be useful if you need to make small adjustments to your objects before placement. The height of the floors can be changed in the Building Manager script. For instance, let's go from 3 to 5. And when we go into the play mode and try to place something, the walls will have a different height now. Additionally, if we load one of the levels that have been saved, such as this one, the objects will also be scaled to the new height. You can also choose which of the objects should be scalable. For instance, all of the furniture objects are currently set to non-scalable, so the scale is not going to change for them. All the textures and materials for the models are included in this package. All of the scripts are fully commented, and there is a full documentation that describes all of these features in detail. The package also uses databases as scriptable objects that you can add to. All of these objects over here that are in the main prefab database, referenced by the Building Manager script, will be included in the UI unless you don't want them to be included. As an example, the holders don't need to be in the UI because we're probably never going to be placing an empty holder. That means that this option over here is going to be unchecked. Finally, if you want to learn how to add your own objects, please consult the manual supplied with this package. For additional details and instructions, please consult the manual. Thank you very much for using the Just Build package, and have a good day. In case you have any questions, please contact us using the email on the package website.